I would talk pricing with, and both of them were like, you are leaving money on the table. Not only are you doing that, you're kind of hurting the whole market, local market as a whole. Like, you don't want to be known as the guy that's running around cutting everybody's throats.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Skid Steer Nation podcast. If you're running equipment, bidding jobs, or trying to grow a land service or excavation business without burning yourself out, you're in the right place. Today's guest is Caley Stecker, owner of C&C Land Management out of Holden, Missouri. Caley started his business on the nights and weekends, walked away from a steady job, bought a brand new Kubota early on, and learned some hard lessons the way most of us do, by underbidding jobs, fixing mistakes, and refusing to cut corners even when it cost him. We're going to talk about excavation, problem solving, what he learned the hard way, and why mindsets and positioning matters more than most people think. Before we introduce Caley, though, let me remind all of you, this episode is brought to you by Skid Steer Nation. Hey, if you're running a skid steer compact track loader and you're tired of cheap attachments that don't hold up, Skid Steer Nation is built for you. We sell American-made skid steer attachments that are designed for real work, land clearing, grading, trenching, and everything in between. No gimmicks, no offshore junk, just solid equipment that helps you get more done and make more money with the machine you already own. You can check out all of our attachments at skidsteernation.com. Also want to remind you that this show is also brought to you by Throttled Up Marketing. If you're a contractor or land service business owner who's great in the field but tired of guessing what it takes to do marketing, Throttled Up literally exists to fix that. We help contractors get found locally, show up correctly on Google, and build a steady flow of inbound leads without chasing homeowners on Facebook or relying strictly on word of mouth. No fluff, no vanity metrics, just marketing that actually moves your business forward. If you want help getting out of the weeds, building something more predictable, you can learn more at getthrottledup.com. The link is in the show notes below. All right, now let's get into today's conversation. Caley, I really appreciate you coming on. Welcome to the show, and thanks for being here.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. A little icebreaker question for you. I like to ask a couple guests. I always forget, I don't remember to do it every show, but I want to start getting better at it. What's one thing you have in your truck that you will not leave the house without having?
The tablet that I'm currently talking to you on.
Okay.
I've actually I meet with a business group every Tuesday of just a handful of local business owners. And the vice president of our group made a comment the other day about Caley and his pacifier tablet. And I got to thinking, I was like, I really do not go anywhere without it. I basically run my whole business on the tablet. And if I'm going to be more than a few steps away from it, it goes with me. I mean, to the truck, the shop. I don't carry it in the equipment during the day because I can take calls on my phone. But outside of that, it is on the truck that is on the job. So,
Interesting. We've heard some unique answers from guys. Never practical as that. That makes total sense. It's so much easier to use than a laptop. The tablets are so powerful today. Once you get it set up and designed to work for you, it's like an extension of you and your business almost.
It is.
Man, that's awesome.
I hate being in a spot where I get a call and I'm talking scheduling with the customer, and then I'm expected to retain that for a few hours until I get back to my tablet. So anytime I talk scheduling, it's while I'm on the tablet and it goes right on the calendar and nobody gets missed.
Yeah. Are you using any softwares to help run your business, or is it all like just Google Calendar spreadsheets?
So I currently use Jobber, and I'm in the process of getting started with Scott Andreessen with Excavation Marketing Pros. They have a CRM that will integrate with Jobber. And so those are the two pieces that I use the most.
Nice. Cool. I want to go all the way back to the beginning because I think you've got a pretty relatable and very, inspiring story for someone who hasn't started yet, and very relatable for somebody that has. You were working full time, started doing this nights and weekends. And this was what, back in 2020, 2022?
22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What got you started into even doing some excavation work?
So I've always had a side hustle of some sort. Working a full-time job was, in my family, always kind of considered doing the bare minimum. I come from a family-owned business, and so daylight hours were meant for working, and that's just kind of what was instilled in us. And so my dad owned an old skid steer, the biggest part of my growing up, and always enjoyed running equipment. I took a job my senior year of high school working in the shop for a local excavating company that at that time probably had 35 or 40 employees. So for our area, it was pretty sizable. And that kind of instilled the bug that kind of always lingered in the back of my mind. As an adult, I had several tractors around the farm, liked to run the loader, liked to run the blade, never had any sort of small or heavy equipment. And we got out of doing hay. We sold our big loader tractor, and we found ourselves wishing we still had a loader around. And so we decided to start looking for a used, most likely in bad shape, rubber tired skid steer just to have a loader on our place. And got to thinking, well, if we're going to do that, people are probably going to call us. We're the type of people, a lot of people know us, a lot of people ask us for help. And so decided to rent one from a local guy. He's a rental shop, but kind of more on the side. Has old wore out underpowered equipment. $100 a day for a skid steer is pretty cheap around here. And got to doing side work with old busted up equipment. And we ended up finding ourselves completely out of debt, and was like, well, we could probably afford a new skid steer. And that would be something we could kind of build off of. And so kept doing work on the side and ended up with about 6 months worth of work lined up. And a lot of it was people we know, like it is when you get started. And so they're like, oh, just get to me when you get to me. And we started seeing more and more work from people we didn't know, and actually started losing that work because we were scheduling it too far out. And so we sat down and had a talk with me and my wife and said, well, if it doesn't work out, there's plenty of work out there to go back to, but let's make this our main focus and see where it takes us. And so I gave my notice to work, and that was in February of 22 that I left, and we have not been without somewhere to go tomorrow since I jumped ship.
Wow, that's impressive, man. Are you still running you've got your wife, and I assume she's the other C in CNC Land Management?
Yes.
What's her name?
Christina.
So
Chrissy.
it's Caley and Christina. Yep. Okay, Chrissy. Yep. And then you also have a full-time employee on staff, correct?
Yeah, so we've kept one guy through the winter, which is what we try to do every winter. It's a little bit tough keeping more than that around. Just, we don't know what the weather's going to do in the Midwest. And so it's easy to come up with enough busy work to keep one guy around. It gets kind of costly doing that for too many. So we've got a young kid that works for us full time, or as close to full time as he cares to get.
Nice. How many guys do you have working with you in the busy months?
We've had up to 3. 2 is ideal at this point. Unless I could bring somebody on that I could put in the machine and not have to worry about having too many laborers or ground hands, gets a little bit tough to keep up with enough work for that skill set.
It's like herding cats by lunchtime usually.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky. We had a kid that worked for us his junior and senior year of high school. He was on a modified work program and stuck with us for a couple years. And you definitely kind of have to have a different mindset than how we were raised, as far as being late's no big deal to a lot of the younger generation now. They don't even think to call and give you a heads up, hey, I'm going to be 20 minutes late. And it's like, there's 3 of us standing in the driveway waiting on you. A heads up would be nice, but I've definitely figured out that being too tough on them can kind of be a negative. So you just have to roll with the punches. And if you tell me you're going to be late, I'm probably going to say, hey, I get it. Don't rush yourself into a wreck. Get here when you get here, and we'll figure it out. It kind of had to learn to be a little more patient as a boss, working with kids that were just kind of raised in a different era.
Yeah, I feel like you almost have to be like a big brother / parent too, because they're like, you're almost teaching them how to become men and adults.
I don't know how many times I've had to remind, a half dozen different, kids, I'll call them, hey, we're going to be doing this tomorrow. Bring a coat. It's going to be cold. Or pack a lunch. We're going to be miles away from the nearest gas station. Or bring a pair of gloves. They'll be picking at sores on their hand on the way home. Like, oh, wow, I got a blister. I cut my hand 87 times. And it's like, you need a pair of gloves? Like, I'll give you a pair of gloves if you don't have a pair. Some of them just don't think to even ask. And so, definitely being a parent or a big brother is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and it's, some people think it's unfortunate that they have to be in that role, but, the older I get, the more it's like, yeah, but we get to take the lessons we learn that were instilled with us, the hard work traditions, we get to pass that on. Whether it sticks or not, it's a different story. But at least we get an opportunity to pass that on.
I have to constantly be of the mindset, if you don't know, you don't know. I cannot fault the guy for not knowing something they were never taught. I could easily find myself in the mindset of just assuming that people know what we think are the basics, and it's something they've never had put in front of them. So we try to be of a very teaching mindset. Now that, does have other issues that go along with it, because a lot of times you find yourself teaching the same lesson over and over and over. And we've had some people that had a hard time retaining what we think are simple tasks, and kind of becomes problematic in that aspect.
Yeah. I think we're in for a rude generation. I was actually just listening to like Tony Robbins and Jay Shetty, and they were talking about how they were saying Gen X is actually Gen RX, because like 70% of the generation's on prescription drugs. Most of them are for mood.
Yep.
And, like in like self-help and self-care has went from having a moment to either like meditate or breathe or go fishing to now my life should just constantly be easy 24/7. And, without any resistance, without any pressure, without any challenges, life gets mundane and boring. And, that's where depression starts to kick in, is because it's too comfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He actually shared a really neat analogy or a story. It was kind of fun. he talked about a guy who died, and when he met the angel, and he's like, yeah, I want to spend my days at the Wynn Casino. And next thing you know, he's at the Wynn Casino. He's gambling. He can't lose. It's just an amazing, amazing day. And then it was just like Groundhog's Day, where every day he was in the Wynn Casino, and every day he won. And like day 14, the dealer's like, oh, you just won. He's like, I know, I can't lose. And he went to the angels like, hey, this isn't right. Like I win everything I do. Like it's almost gotten boring. He's like, this isn't what I expected, heaven to be like. And the angel looked at him and said, who said you were in heaven?
It's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Right.
Really make you think.
That just really resonated with me this morning.
Yeah.
Caley, one of the things that really stuck out in like reading the information you supplied us before the show, there's actually two things, but the one that I want to talk about now is actually like your underbidding mistake, your conviction to your values to finish the job, even at a cost to you, and like how that transitioned you as a business owner and how you do things differently today.
Well, early on, I think not knowing your capabilities, not knowing what kind of time it takes you to complete certain tasks, and not knowing your actual true cost of doing business, I think it was easy for me to want to be competitive, want to get the job. I mean, we called it bid it to get it, more or less, like tossing a number out that we think is close, going to come in under most of the competition, and we found ourselves basically covering costs, maybe, but not really making anything. And once we figured out what it costs to operate, what it costs to have labor on the job for the day, the true cost of it, not just a guy's hourly wage, we were able to kind of get our numbers dialed up. I mean, we were definitely bidding less than we should have done. Everybody I talked to in this business, mentor-wise, are all of the same mindset that doing hourly work is a race to the bottom. And there's several different parts of that we get into that I'm sure you've covered, but punishing yourself for being efficient. I mean, a lot of customers, I would present them with, hey, I'm $175 an hour or $150 an hour, we'll say, for easy numbers. And they're like, oh, good grief, I'm not going to pay $150 an hour. But then you tell them you're $1,200 a day, and it's like they don't do the quick math. And, oh, yeah, that sounds plenty reasonable. Doesn't sound as harsh, I guess. And so we never got into doing hourly work. And there were a couple times where I found myself far from being finished with the job and upside down. And that's something that we as a company pride ourselves in. If nothing changes in the outline scope of work, we live and die by our quoted price. I mean, if I say to go from here to here is going to cost this, that is what you owe me. Now, if changes are made, real time is added to the job by the customer, then that's a conversation for as soon as it's brought up. I've made the mistake of having verbal change orders dropped in my lap, carried on with the job, didn't have a conversation, made the change at the end, and then you've got a conflict with a customer who thinks you're overcharging them for the extra work. And so having clear costs, clear expectations, being black and white about everything I have figured out makes for a lot smoother time settling up with a customer. We got into a job. I should have known better. We were far enough along. Got a call a year ago this last February. House built on a hillside with a known water leak identified by the county, but it wasn't surfacing. I knew the area was nothing but segmented rock. Water's got a lot of places to go. It's probably never going to come out of the ground. And so I gave her a price to come out and do a day's worth of exploratory digging. The ground settles a lot around here, so anytime we've got a non-servicing water leak, we always dig it up at the meter. That's generally where they break. And so I gave her a price to do a day's worth of digging and didn't really talk about what happens if we don't find it. We talked about, well, if we find it, then this is the cost to repair it. Didn't talk about what happens if we spend the whole day digging test holes and listening to pipe and still can't trace the water leak. Well, there were a couple spots of water line that went under concrete driveway and a spot that went under a porch that was added on, and we just had no possible way of getting anywhere. I mean, the job was a show for sure. We had enough of her place dug up. I told her, I said, we would be a lot better off at this point running a new water line. You've got 30-year-old belled PVC. Let's go ahead and connect the ditches that we've got cut, and we'll put in a single piece of 3/4 inch poly. And she said, yeah, that's fine. Well, then we got to talking about the porch that we had to get under. I told her, I said, we can run this new water line inside your 1.5 inch PVC, shoot it right into the basement. And she said, yeah, that's fine. Well, at that point, I was of the understanding that we could do that anywhere. So I dug it up on the far end. We ran one piece up the old line and basically shot into the house and got done. And she was like, well, I thought you were going to dig up everything else. I really wanted to see where this leak was. And I tried to explain to her, once we go from carefully looking for a leak to blow and go dig and ditch, I'm not going to stay on top of that old pipe. We're going to pick our route. We're going to get to depth and we're going to dig. And she ended up making a lot of threats, not wanting to pay. Told me she didn't want my excavator to leave until we had everything settled, even though the job was done. And that was one of those jobs at the midway point I knew was going to be problematic. I mean, it's one of the ones you would have probably paid just about anything to be able to walk away and not have somebody bashing your name just to get, but that's not how we work. We stuck it out. We got it done. She was thinking February, when we got there was about 1 foot of snow on the ground. So everything was soft. Of course, we got on it, tracked everything up even more. And, she was curious why her yard didn't look identical to what it did when we got there. And I told her, I said, the ditches are going to have to do some settling. It's probably going to need some work in the springtime, but it is absolute soup. I said, you can't grade mud. This is the best we can get it. And she wasn't having that. And yeah, it just was not a good job. I did a ton of learning on that job where, not only do we put in the scope of work what we're going to do, we've started to put in our scope of work things we're not going to do. As far as no sod, if the customer says, hey, I'll seed it when you're done, we put on there, we're not putting out seed and straw. That way, when it comes time to settle up, nobody's pulling a fast one on anybody, and I think having clear expectations and a way to prove it's been a key thing in our quoting process.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, man. Setting those expectations up front early and often, and even writing them into your quotes, and it saves you so many headaches. And anyone that's been in business for 2 or 3 years, if you haven't changed the way you quote by now, then stop asking why you have so many shitty customers, right? You've learned your lessons, change your process. Customers aren't going to change, right? You need to get more professional, more dialed in. Walk them through your process, walk them through how you do business, and either they're a good fit for your company or they're not.
Yep. We didn't even have, early on, we didn't have a rock clause, which, I mean, I don't know how
Missouri,
many times
you didn't have a rock clause?
It was overlooked. After a couple jobs having to run to the rental yard and grab a breaker, it got added. It's very detailed. We even have what we call our suitable soil conditions clause, where the work I've outlined in this scope of work is contingent on suitable soil conditions. If we get into rock or even shallow shale, a high water table, you never know around here. It could be anything. Work is stopped and a conversation is had. And if for some reason the customer chooses to not proceed, this is what is owed up until that point.
Yeah. That's smart. It does. And honestly, it does two things, in my opinion. And most contractors would actually have these prioritized backwards. One, which to me is the second on the list, is it protects you, right? As a business owner, you're not going to walk into those terrible situations. Most business owners look at that as the primary reason to have all of those clauses or expectations of what we will, won't do, and all that. In reality, if I'm a consumer and you're providing the service for me and I see that you have all this in there, I can tell just by reading that you've been around a long time, you know what you're doing, you've seen it, you've seen a million different things, and I can trust that you're going to be professional, right? So we have to start looking at it doesn't just protect you, that's the byproduct. It actually makes the the customer more comfortable, because they're not getting one line sentence of new water line to house or new roadway or quarter acre cleared, and then having some ridiculously large number with zero expectations or zero if this then that. And
we go as detailed as we can.
Start looking at it as a benefit for your customers. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We
smart.
Try to be detailed as we can. I mean, I'll put model numbers of the yard hydrant we're putting on. We put the size of pipe we're going to use, the type of couplings. We're on a septic job right now that's got a secondary pump with an alarm. All of those quotes get the pump make, model, the alarm make and model. Sometimes we even put a link to where it comes from. And a lot of times what that'll do, I mean, you toss this big number out to a customer and they don't know what's what half the time. And so you put links to these items and it's like, oh, this main tank is a $2,200 tank, or, oh, that little old pump that's in the second tank, that's a $500 pump. They're like, oh, wow, there's actually some money being spent on this, and it's not all tied up in labor. And it actually helps kind of ease them a little bit, being transparent. Now, I normally break down, or I never break down bids as far as give them a full labor material split or itemized prices on everything. But on the bigger ticket pieces, we have no problem telling them exactly what they're getting. I mean, if they're paying for it, they might as well know.
Yeah. I love that. I think transparency always wins, right?
It does.
Because it just builds trust between you and your customer.
Yep. Actually, the job we're on right now,
$2,200. Oh,
I'm sorry.
The
job we're on right now, we got contacted by the customer of a custom home build that had a builder involved. Did not like the quote that the builder's septic guys gave them. He said it was basically 3 or 4 lines, very vague, no details whatsoever. And we got called in. He had mentioned that, hey, this guy didn't really give me any info. So I made sure to go above and beyond detailed on the quote. We were a higher price, not by much. I mean, probably a couple grand. And we still ended up getting the job because of how detailed we are and setting that expectation, conveying what it is we were providing them with. And I mean, it just goes to show that people aren't always about the low bid, which, I mean, I kicked myself in the butt because when I first jumped ship, I was worried about being competitive when I should have been worried about standing out in my own way, giving them something that my competitors weren't.
I love that. I usually wait till the end of the show to bring up a few points, and I'm like, hey, there's some really good nuggets in this episode. But like, that's so powerful because there's not only new guys starting out, but there's guys 5-10 years that are still afraid to raise their prices or still afraid to protect themselves because they think it's going to lead to zero work. And in reality, it leads to better margins, better personal life, better employee retention, better experience with customers, and more money.
Well, I had a couple mentors in this line of work that I would talk pricing with, and both of them were like, you are leaving money on the table. Not only are you doing that, you're kind of hurting the whole market, local market as a whole. Like, you don't want to be known as the guy that's running around cutting everybody's throats. And so I saw a deal the other day. I don't remember where I saw it, but it definitely made sense. It said, if you are not at least a little bit nervous or embarrassed by your price that you quoted, you're probably leaving money on the table. And it makes total sense. I mean, I can tell somebody, hey, I'll do this for this much, and sounds fair, probably a little low in the grand scheme of things. And then it's like, well, what if I charged $500 more for a half day job? Well, I mean, you're going to get it or you're not, but by not doing so, you're not putting yourself to be in a better position. I mean, especially once your efficiency gets up. I mean, there was jobs I did early on that might have taken me a whole day that now I would go do them, and I would do them in a couple hours. Well, do I charge less because it takes me less time?
You're better at it?
Or do I charge the same and pay myself for getting better at that job?
Yeah, and if you're doing day rate, half day rate, hourly rate, you're just cutting your own throat.
Yep. We try to price everything. We try to price jobs with a day rate in mind of, hey, we think this is going to take a day or the biggest part of a day. We'll hit it with that number that we kind of keep in the back of our mind. And if we're going to have a laborer there, then there's that much more on the job, or a second truck with a dump trailer, whatever's going to be thrown at it. We've got pretty standardized pricing. But then it's like, well, we don't know this or we don't know that, or maybe you want to figure a little bit for the unknowns. I mean, you don't know what you're getting into. You think problems may crop up, and sometimes it's kind of nice to have a little bit of cushion there where you're not losing right off the bat.
Yeah. No, and I can't tell you, this is probably the number one conversation I have with clients with the marketing company, with clients with the consultation business. And it's, everyone's like, you hear the term know your numbers and they think frontline numbers. And I'm like, no, how many gallons of diesel does each machine run hourly? What's your monthly payment on that? And what's your operating cost between maintenance, wear and tear, track replacement, insurance, replacement parts, that you can break down and divide that and get an hourly cost for each machine? Like, that's knowing your numbers. Like, hey, this machine cost me $49 an hour. This employee cost me, well, if he's $20 an hour and we got backroll payroll taxes and all that, and work comp, if he's on the books, he's probably closer to $30 an hour, right?
Well,
like, that's knowing those numbers. And like,
yeah. And I mean, I try to take it even further. We provide anybody that works for us outerwear head to toe. And so we figure that into the true cost of having them. I mean, if we're supplying them with hats and shirts, boots, winter, like whatever you have going out has got to be considered when you figured out your pricing. Otherwise, you're doing all that stuff.
Once you know your true 100%. You and I agree 100% on that. But like, once you know all your true hard costs, no profits, then you have to figure, in my opinion, you add in an overhead percentage, because you've got cell phone bills and internet and tablet subscriptions and software subscriptions and marketing companies and lettering for the side of the truck, right? So if you're running at a 15 to 30% overhead off the cost, and then the overhead and the cost get added together, and then from there you have your multiplier at whatever profit margin you want to make on the job. And then that gives you your final project job. And then you build your scope of work and your expectations and your clauses around that final number.
Yep.
That's
absolutely
my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Because most guys will take their hard costs, get to their 40% profit margin and put that on top of that. And then the year wonder why they're only making 18%.
Yep.
Because all that overhead's got to come out of the 40% profit.
Yep. And it isn't coming out of your hard costs. I mean, your hard costs are already paid for. So
right.
Profit is
it's coming out of your profit. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you talked about it early on, in essence, like trying to chase that dollar, like not lose bids and bid low and all that. Like, and you've reached this growth with your business, but a lot of guys probably haven't yet. But you have to stop chasing revenue and start chasing profit percentage.
Yep, absolutely.
Because I know a lot of guys that do 7, 8, 100,000, $1 million a year, and they don't make shit because they don't have their numbers dialed in.
Yeah. Yep. I had a guy, early on, we talk about just jobs and cost and customers. And he was big on the mentality of, I can stay home and go broke, or I can stay home and not make anything. I'm not going to go do a job for somebody and not make anything. Like, I mean, something he pushed, and that just kind of stuck with me of like, yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna take a wash for the day and not make anything, I'd much rather do it at home than go potentially lose money putting hours on my machines. So,
right. But I mean, and it's the same mentality, just spun with a positive light versus being a negative comment, right? If you told a customer, well, I don't work for less than that, I'll stay home and go broke, like you're an asshole before you even move forward, right? But if you can be like, listen, we're an actual legitimate business. We know exactly what our hourly costs are. We know exactly what our employees are going to make. And we know what money we need to make to be able to continue doing this work for other people. And this is what the price is that we do the project for. And now they get to choose whether they work with you or not. But like, nobody can be mad with you for that comment.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not one I would put out in front of the customer for sure. But
a lot of guys do, man. I can't believe like how many people you hear actually talk like that.
Oh yeah, I mean that around here, you get told to see your way to your truck, and yeah.
Oh man. One of the other things that, I mean, going back to this whole story of you doing what you say you're going to do, regardless of what happens, if the scope stayed the same, like you're actually using your execution as a big differentiator for your business compared to your competitors these days. Focusing on the details, not cutting corners, and like leaving the property better after you leave than when you arrived. Can you talk about like where that came from and where that was instilled at, and like what you've noticed with your business?
So I'm really big on habits and mannerisms, and even more so patterns. And I figured out really quickly that most customers, especially older customers, if you were to ask them, what is your biggest fear or concern moving forward with this job? 99 times out of 100, it was that it's going to cost more than what you've estimated. And I hate the term estimate quote. I mean, to me, those are all guesses. I really drive home to people that the number in that quote, that is a hard number. That is what you're going to owe me when we get done with this job. It's not going to change. It's not going to, oh, well, we ran into this, or we forgot to put this line item in the quote, so now you owe us that. The number at the bottom of the page is what you will owe me when the job's done. As far as leaving people's place better, something we tried to do early on was always do a little more than what was talked about, do a little more than what was expected. If we're on the job and someone's like, hey, while you're here, can you do this? I know that's the dreaded question to a lot of guys. Because, I mean, some people may be asking you to really, I mean, give a half a day for free, or, I mean, generally it's go knock that dirt pile over that was left last year when we had our septic worked on it. And so we never upsell on those little tasks. If we see it, even if they don't bring it up, I mean, I'm always looking for an extra to give, an extra to leave. So if I see something, I mean, they've got a nice yard, but there's a pile of dirt or a pile of sand from where a pool used to be. Hey, while we're here, do you want me to run over and knock that down? Most people are, I don't even know the word to put on it. Most people are reasonable enough to say, well, what would you charge? And of course, our answer is always, oh, nothing. We'll just do it while we're here. And it seems like if you give somebody even just a little more than what you were supposed to, they act like it's the biggest deal in the world to them. Like, that's been an eyesore to the old man having to mow around it every week for 2 years. And you just solve that problem by dropping a bucket once, back dragging it, and dumping it back in the woods or wherever they tell you to. Like, you just solved a small problem. And I mean, that kind of boils down to I mean, it's commonly said and repeated, but we're in the problem solving business. Somebody's got an issue. We're who they call to take care of it. And the more you can do for them, the better off you are in their eyes.
100%. And like, really, I think I love going above and beyond. I think a lot of guys will give you the but, then they ask for a second, third, and fourth thing, and I get it. There's always a black sheep in the group of customers, right? There's always the one that wants it all, expects it for free. Like, yeah, we get it. Most customers aren't like that.
The rule, though. Yeah.
100%. But I love what you were saying is that if you can find something that you can do to add more value to them, because that's what they're going to talk about at dinner with their friends. That's what they're going to talk about with their insurance agent. That's what. Oh, he was the nicest guy in the world. He even saw that dirt pile out back and asked if he wanted us to get rid of it for him. Like boy, that was, we were fighting that thing for 2 years, like you were saying, and he didn't even have to ask him. He just took care of it for us.
Yep.
And I love that going above and beyond. I also think just finishing and being really good at what you say you're going to do is huge in this industry.
That's generally enough. I mean, a lot of people make business more complicated than it is. And I mean, I'm not saying it's easy by any means, because if I could just go set in a hoe for 8 or 10 hours a day, I mean, that's easy. It's everything else it takes to run the business for me that I think it's the hard part. But what I've figured out, if you do what you say you're going to do and you communicate with the customer, those are the two biggest things I think in being successful. Most people around here aren't pushy. They just want to know where they stand scheduling wise. And if you've got to move them or bump them a little bit, as long as you tell them, hey, we've had a job run long, or we've had an equipment issue or whatever, most people are going to be pretty reasonable in making those adjustments. It's when, and I mean, I've heard of guys doing it, it's when you don't call or don't show up when you were supposed to, and then the customer's calling you like, hey, where are you at? That is when you start to turn what would have been a positive experience into a customer that's probably going to be looking at you a little bit hard. Their opinion of you may be depleting just by not knowing where they stand.
I always use this type of analogy to hammer this home to some guys that, like, they say, you see, like, I always call it the bobblehead move, right? Like, you see the head moving, but it's not quite, the light bulb's not going off.
Yeah.
But if your wife came home and she just kind of looked at you and had a sour look on her face and walked past you in a different room, your first thought's going to be like, oh shit, what'd I do to piss her off? Right? We're never going to think about what happened at work. Did her mom fall and break her hip? Like, what happened externally? You instantly go to, oh shit, what did I do to piss her off? Right? Well, your customers are doing the same thing, right? If they don't, like, no news is just you, like, with your wife. They're like, well, what the hell did I do to this guy? Why isn't he calling me back?
They're not thinking about the 2 jobs that ran long and you tossed a track on a machine. And yeah, they're definitely quick to blame themselves.
Right. And then, I'd rather have a contractor call and tell me, hey, I can't make it this week due to the weather or due to a breakdown or, a complicated project that I'm on. I'm not sure if I can get to you Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday next week. Is it okay if I call you Sunday night and we can discuss, like, over communication wins 10 times out of 10.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Do you struggle with scheduling and time management, or is that an area that you've gotten really good at?
I struggle with scheduling and time management. Even this far, right now, the biggest thing is, we took on a lot of work that was kind of, at the time, was back burner, get to it when you get to it. We took on a lot of work over the winters. Call me in the springtime. Well, you find yourself in a spot where you've got 20 people calling you saying, hey, spring's here, where you at? And so you start prioritizing what's most important, what can you knock out really quickly, piling up jobs in certain geographical areas that you can just bounce from one job to the next. We actually hired a full-time operator last spring. Friend of mine that wanted to come to work for us. We wanted him to come work for us. He left his job, and of course, add another operator, another moving machine. We really started piling up work just to stay ahead of needing more available work. And then he ended up getting offered a foreman job at his old company, more money, truck. I mean, pretty nice setup. And it kind of left us with more work than we really needed at the time. And you go from trying to prioritize who was first in line, but then you have a site build job where, hey, these people are trying to get into this new house by this time, so you've got a family involved, so you maybe try to move things around to help them. And it's kind of gotten to the point now where we cater to whoever's the loudest. I mean, whoever is the next to walk. I mean, we've got jobs, and we're kind of getting out of that. I mean, we're getting to the end of some of the chaos, but over the summertime, it was whoever was threatening to walk and find somebody else. That was the next job put on the schedule because we didn't want to lose that job. Yeah. And so you find, but I mean, it's a double-edged sword because then you find yourself bumping somebody that's already been bumped and been reasonable about it. And it's like, people are only going to take so much. We've had probably, well, I can tell you, I mean, in 2025, we had 3 jobs, bid, contracted, and on the list, not even on the calendar, but on the list that called and said, hey, need to get this done quicker than you've been able to do so. We're going to go another route. And I mean, I've talked to some of my competitors and collaborators and other guys, and most of them are of the mindset of, oh, well, screw them. That just means you're busy. And I don't like it. I think too much of it would resonate within the community and kind of start to paint a bad image of you. And so, now that things are kind of getting a little more on an even keel, moving forward, I definitely got some changes I'm going to be making as far as setting those expectations.
Yeah. Have you looked at what those changes are going to be for you operationally in the back end and how you're going to get better at that yet?
So some of it's going to be discussing with the customer up front, like, what is your expected time frame on this? When would you like to see it done? To me, that opens up the conversation to let them know where we're at, and then just making sure they're aware that in this line of work, not every day is a working day. I mean, if it's raining or snowing, that's one day that would bump you back if you were currently on the calendar. And so making sure they understand that, hey, some changes might have to be made, but we will do our best to hit this mark. I mean, give them a week window at least. And that's generally enough for most people. It just, I mean,
so do you have a shop, or do you like have an outbuilding that everyone meets at in the morning, or?
We meet in my driveway where the trucks and trailers are parked. We've got a shop and a Connex that we work out of as far as tools and material. But yes, everybody meets at the house. And I have actually figured out that some of the delays come from internally. I've had laborers and it took me a while to figure out the pattern, but I'd say, oh, hey, we're going to go do this job. It should only take a few hours. But then you get out on the job and I don't know, something in their mind is like, well, this is all we have today. Let's make it take all day. When I had planned for the second half of that day to go set up for tomorrow's job. Well, instead we spent all day on a half-day job, and we're not set up for tomorrow's job. And so some of that builds backlog, that builds negative progress.
Yep.
And so
I'll tell you right now, Caley, the best thing you could do for where you're at, I mean, I know guys that have built out digital calendars and like got all these crazy systems that ties into there's like, I'm a big fan of keep it simple, right? You can update and reiterate and you can improve, but if you've got nothing, then start with the simplest, easiest thing you can do tomorrow. Clear a spot out on your garage wall, tape off a calendar, grid row, do something, get some cards that you can actually put project, a little bit of details on it, and just start laying out your work days. Cause then your crew can see that, oh, half morning is this job, afternoon set up for tomorrow. Like they can visually see it, right? Now that you keep them accountable. And then you can move those little pieces around based on weather and everything else too. But everyone on the whole team can see it. You might even have a kid go, so why are we doing that job Tuesday? The job next Tuesday's like a mile down the street. Can we do both of those on Friday? And you're like, oh, I didn't even see that. Good catch.
Yep. So I have figured out that even setting verbal expectations of like, hey, this is what we're going to go do this job. Well, for us, it's kind of helped a little bit. I mean, if I tell the kid in the morning, hey, we're going to do this job, and then when we get done there, we're heading over there. My wife works in day-to-day operations, and she works more with the laborers and the ground hands than I do, just due to personality and generational conflicts, I'll call it. She's a lot more like teaching and nurturing, but she will also tell them like too, hey, we've got a quarter mile of barbed wire to clip. We're not leaving till the job's done. So pick up your pace and let's like, she will get after them. And sometimes I think I need to learn how to do the same thing without being over the top. The reason she manages the ground. So, like, if somebody's dragging their feet, my very first instinct is, hey, if that's all the faster you can move, I don't need you here. Well, to an 18-year-old kid, that plants the seed of, well, maybe I don't want to be here. And so she kind of goes about it from a little nicer angle, but enough to still get her point across. But yeah, I definitely think.
But I'm just telling you right now, if you could start mapping out weeks of jobs with pieces that you can move around like a chessboard and that the other team can see, and if your wife wants to like print out a like projected work schedule for the week, so the guy getting them to see it is the same as communicating with your customer, right? You're talking about the same people that you have to remind to bring gloves and grab a jacket. They're not remembering all your verbal thoughts. Like they're just not.
Yeah. No,
and then the other big piece of advice that I just get it visually so everyone can see it. You won't believe how much easier you'll breathe, because then you can see the pieces and where they need to move based on overruns or weather or whatever. And then here's the other thing: most guys give me a lot of backlash, and the ones that actually do it say it's the best thing I ever did in my life. But like literally schedule a 4-day work week. Because jobs always run long, weather always comes in. And like if you're packing 5 full work days every week, and it rains for 3 days, you just screwed up 4 weeks of schedule.
Yep.
Right. So like schedule a 4-day work week. Day 5 is for overages or sending out invoices or maintenance on machines or pressure washing equipment or getting a jump start on Monday's project because you can. Right. But that 5th day just becomes your buffer for the week. Because if you ran your numbers right now, you're not averaging 5 days of work a week over 52 weeks. You're just not.
No way. I mean, in the Midwest, that's not possible, obviously, just due to weather, and not to mention the things we do control, but don't.
But I think like giving yourself a little bit of that buffer in your weekly schedule and then having visibility of all your jobs this week, upcoming weeks, and then a list of things that need to be scheduled for the next month, whatever else. It doesn't, and again, just be pieces of paper taped to a wall. Like, we're not talking about investing a shitload of money in a software that tells you where to be and what to do, right? It just gives you a place to see it so it gets out of your head. Yeah. You breathe easier. Your staff can see it. When you talk about the projects, they can see, oh, pink is tomorrow morning, blue's tomorrow afternoon, like whatever your system is. And then just knowing that you're not balls to the wall 12 hours a day for 5 days a week. Like, we've got a little buffer built in there. Those two things I've seen help businesses turn around faster, because you could start doing that tomorrow, right? If they I can see people turn around faster with those two implements than anything else.
Yeah, I will.
And my best advice, not just for you, but for all the listeners out there, Caley, in a world of technology, don't get googly eyes. Keep it simple.
Oh, yeah.
Because, there's an app for that. Yeah, but then you got to download it. You got to learn it. And then you got to input all the data in it. And then you got to train the team on it. And then you got to do if you're already in the weeds, just find a way to get out of the weeds. You can work on that shit later.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, that was my tangent for the show. I'm good for one a show minimum. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good advice. So I've got whenever we first started out, I bought a 18 by 24 dry erase board, and that was going to be center headquarters of our whole operation. I had all of our bills, what day they were due. I had a column for any maintenance that was coming up, job list of 8 or 10 jobs. Well, we outgrew that, and I bought I think it's 4 foot by 6 foot dry erase board that's magnetic, and kind of started keeping it updated with upcoming jobs, jobs that were started and we had to pull away from due to other subs. Anything that was left up in the air, not finished, material that needed ordered for upcoming jobs, make sure we had rock ordered or posts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of fell off a little bit, honestly. I like the index card idea, because with the dry erase, you're constantly.
This was just going to tell you, Caley.
With the index card,
this is what I was just going to tell you. Right, you can get on Amazon and buy those little sleeves that hold cards of paper that have a magnetic piece on the back of them, right? Mm-hmm. And now you're just moving stuff around. And if it covers 2 days, just stick it on the line between the 2 days, so you see that it's on both days. It'll make it so much easier. Because I agree, dry erasing and then you got to change 4 places to put one. It's a pain in the ass. You just won't do it. I wouldn't.
I will probably try to even use it to help me a little bit too. I'll probably put like a needs invoiced column. That way, when we come back from a job, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, it's almost embarrassing, but there's been times where I have an invoice for a job and a month goes by and the customer gets a hold of me and is like, hey, you're going to bill me for that job? And it's like, what happens if they weren't an honest customer? If they got a month away from me, I mean, it could get 6 months. I mean, you could forget about it, unfortunately. And so to be able to move that to needs invoiced, and then close it out when it's done. I mean, yeah. Nope, I could definitely see where that would be a big help.
But I would recommend, if you got a 4x6 whiteboard, just draw a line right down the middle of that, and one whole side is nothing but a calendar. And then if you want to build columns or notes or whatever for your rest, but don't make that so much the calendar's little. Like, if you need to get another whiteboard for that shit, get it. But the calendar should be so that everyone on the team knows exactly what the plan is for the day of the week, and hopefully next week, as long as weather cooperates.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to be respectful of your time. I do have one more thing that I really want to talk to you about, because this was the other topic that really resonated with me reading about with that form that you gave us. And it put a huge smile on my face, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Words matter. Call yourself a family-owned business, a growing business, but never call yourself a small business.
Yeah, so, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, at this point, I don't care to say it. Early on, when I was doing little grading jobs after a house was built or somebody cut some ruts, I mean, I was doing like AFM, anything for money. If it was dirt related and I could do it with my skid steer, I was taking it on. And I think in this business, probably any business, people look at you and you've got to look the part. If you show up in a ragged out truck, people are going to think this. Or if you all don't have matching tops and look some sort of uniform, and so the whole, I mean, fake it till you make it thing, I think that's a bad way of putting it, but you've got to look the part. You've got to look like somebody the customer is willing to hire and pay to complete the job. And so if you convey yourself as a small business or a new business or a startup, or, I mean, a side gig would be the worst thing to sell yourself as. I mean, people are not going to take you seriously. I think if you want people to look at you like a legit business, you got to carry yourself that way, but you also have to call yourself that. I mean, if you push the small business, you're going to pigeonhole yourself in the customer's eyes into thinking, oh, this guy's not serious, or he's not invested, or he just doesn't have as much at stake. If you consider yourself a growing business or an expanding business, people are going to look at you a lot different as far as what they see.
I agree with all of that. And I also think the other thing that I believe in that same line that you're talking about is that if you always say you're a small business, you're mentally telling yourself you're just a little guy.
Stay small.
You stay small.
Don't grow, don't expand, don't better yourself, don't raise your prices and increase your just stay small. I mean, if that's your selling point that you rely on, you will be stuck there.
So I love that when you say like family-owned business or growing business, because if I always say we're a growing business, and every day that reminds me that we're trying to move forward, we're trying to grow, we're trying to get better, trying to get more efficient, trying to get more like it's just a great reminder, and words are extremely important.
Very much so.
I think I was 8 years old. I was at a swimming pool, and some other 10-year-old's like, God, you're chubby. And I've thought of myself as a fat kid ever since. Like, that's how important words are, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. They definitely stick.
Yeah. So like choosing the words of how you describe yourself, how you describe your business. I read that and I was really like, I love that, because it's so important of how we view ourselves and how we project ourselves to our potential customers.
Yep. I noticed even early on when I first started, I had a extended cab 10-cylinder gasser, not an ideal hauling truck, but it was clean. It looked respectable. And I noticed that like builders and developers started looking at me differently the more I got the truck set up. I bought toolboxes for it and a headache rack and a beacon and put a fuel tank in it and a gas-powered air compressor. And that was kind of what got me busted at my day job when I went to put my 2-week when I went to put my notice in to my boss, he already knew what was up. He saw my signs around town and my business cards at the hardware store, and he was just kind of waiting for me to come to him. And so I called him into a meeting and said, hey, this is probably going to be a tough conversation for me. He said, it doesn't have to be. He said, just go ahead and lay it out. I know exactly where it's going, and I'm excited to hear it. And he said, I've seen your pickup truck go from just a regular old truck to a little mini service truck. He's like, I can tell what you're doing. And so I noticed like people would look at me differently when the truck looked the part and my shirts looked the part, and everybody's in matching tops when you're on the job. And even if you're not a big business, carry yourself like you are, and you can get in and run with them. I mean, a lot of people are going to be quicker to use a well-presented smaller company than they are maybe a bigger company with higher overhead, just because they assume, well, this guy's going to operate with a little less cost, less overhead, whatever. And you just don't trap yourself into staying small. And I think if you continually tell yourself you're small, you're going to be small until you
stay small.
Yep.
Yeah. We do a thing like we bring a new client on for Throttled Up Marketing, and we'll go through a very extensive brief research, all of that. But one of the things I really like to dig deep with these guys is like, where do you see your business in 2 years? Like, what services are you doing? How much crew do you have? Like, in a perfect world, what does your business look like in 2 years from now? And when they tell me that message, I say, thanks. That's how we're going to project your business today in all of your wording and your website and whatever we do for you. And they're like, what, why? And I'm like, because if that's where you want to go, you start telling people that's where you're already at, because you need to believe it so that you can actually get there.
Speak it into existence. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And like we've seen a lot. I mean, I've seen guys go from literally quitting their job doing a driveway on a Wednesday to 14 months later signing $750,000 commercial projects.
Big time.
Right. And that's not the normal. That's not the normal growth trajectory. Like 14 months is not the normal.
I mean, even with us, because we have always tried to stick with rural and ag type properties. I don't like working in city limits. People in rural properties have yards. People in town have lawns, and it's a whole lot easier navigating yards than it is lawns. And so we've always kind of tried to stick with that as our target customer base. And I was under the impression we were going to work for just mom and pops and help a farmer out here and there. And we, the end of year one, it was middle of winter. I had a Mini on the back of my trailer, and these guys from the utility company caught me at the gas station. It was pitch dark still. And they said, hey, are you looking for any work? I was like, well, this time of year I actually am. They said, call this number. Well, just that little meeting at the 1 year mark led to us getting a contract with a prime contractor for Charter Spectrum. And we ended up with the ditch line restoration contract for the fiber plows and drills for a 4-county area. And adding that on top of our current workload, it was huge. But if you had told me 12 months prior, hey, you'll be doing work for Charter Spectrum, I would have called you crazy. Into our second year, we were getting calls from the local university, which is kind of hard to get in with. We've done work for the Army Corps of Engineers, and that early for us, I never would have guessed would even have been on the radar. But I think it's a lot in how we sell ourselves and how we carry ourselves and delivering on promises and just everything it takes to run a good business.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's just so true. Like, don't be afraid to say where you want to go and tell people that's where you're going and that's what you are doing. And speak it into existence. It's a big deal.
Yep.
Well, my friend, I could talk to you all afternoon. We have a lot of the very similar viewpoints and beliefs and values, and it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you today and spend time with you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Guys, there's just a lot of great little things in here, whether it be from the mindset we were talking about to, sticking to your values and being the type of business you want to be, even if it costs you money at the end of a job from time to time, to parenting, not coddling the younger generation as the workforce gets younger and younger. I thoroughly enjoyed the day. Thank you.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you want to reach out, tell him thanks for being on the show. We'll put a link to his website or Facebook page, one or the other, in the show notes. Please do that. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Keep grinding. Happy New Year's. Let's make 2026 the best year yet. And until next week, take care.